Everybody, the lights are on. I'm Gail Cedarberg. I'm going to be leading the meeting for a little bit till other people show up. So first thing on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Any comments or questions on that? So I'll consider the agenda approved. The second part on the agenda is approval of the June 11th, 2024 Environmental Committee minutes. Are there any comments or questions or changes to the minutes? So I'll consider that those are approved. Do we have to have a motion to approve those? Yeah. Okay, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. Congressman Morales, Councilmember Yassin. Next order of business is the consent business. And we've got one item on the consent business. And I'll take a motion to move that we approve the consent business.
So moved.
Councilmember Morales, second.
Second.
Councilmember Carter, thank you. We have 5 items in the non-consent business. And so we'll have some presentations from staff. The first one is 2024-169 Metropolitan Water Resource Recovery Facility, Steam Turbine Generator Sole Source Contract 24P199. So it looks like we have a presentation. Thank you. Oh, didn't we approve? Didn't I say approve the minutes? I think we did.
We made a motion. We didn't approve.
Should I just say it now?
I do it after.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Chair and committee members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present business item 2024-174, Metropolitan Water Resource Recovery Facility, Steam Turbine Generator, Sole Source Contract 24P199. My name is John Tierney. I'm the Mechanical Maintenance Manager for ES, and partnering today with Stephen Norton. He's a Principal Engineer in Plant Engineering for Environmental Services. Next slide, okay. This is our agenda for today. We will cover the background, the sole source scope of services, the sole source justification, contract price, proposed action, and then answer any questions that you may have. The Metropolitan Water Resource Recovery Facility uses 3 fluidized bed incinerators to treat wastewater solids collected from the liquids treatment process. Heat energy is recovered from hot exhaust gas by waste heat boilers. The waste heat boilers produce steam to heat buildings or to generate electricity in either the G7 or G9 steam turbine generators. Excess steam that can't be recovered can be sent to the auxiliary condensers. The pieces of equipment we are here to talk about today are our G7 and G9 steam turbine generators. Shown on this slide, G7 and G9 are located in the Solids Management Building at the Metropolitan Water Resource Recovery Facility. The power produced from the steam turbine generators is used on site, which reduces purchased electricity and offsets carbon emissions from fossil fuel-based electricity. Tuthill Energy Systems furnished the original G7 steam turbine generator system, which was competitively procured in the year 2000. Including the turbine generator and controls, Tuthill Energy Systems was bought out by Rene in 2005 and Siemens Energy in 2015. Siemens Energy is the current original equipment manufacturer. When the G7 steam turbine generator was taken down for preventative maintenance, the inspection company found internal corrosion and erosion and a bowed rotor shaft. The recommended rehabilitation based on a business case evaluation includes repairing the turbine case, the extraction case, the diaphragms, and replacing the rotor. The work for the turbine repair is being completed under Metropolitan Steam Turbine Sole Source Contract 23P036 with Siemens Energy to provide replacement parts, repair, installation, and commissioning services in amount not to exceed $2 million. Business item 2023-83 was approved by the council on April 26th of 2023. At this point, I'll turn it over to Stephen to talk more about the sole source and scope of services.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. The sole source scope of services is split into two parts. The first part includes furnishing, installation, and commissioning of a replacement generator and controls for the G7 steam turbine generator. A future capital project for G7 will incorporate the generator replacement, controls replacement, steam system improvements, and the turbine rehabilitation that John talked about. The second part includes a 5-year service contract that will serve both G7 and G9 steam turbine generators. The generator was sent to a third party for inspection to improve reliability. The photos show some of the generator major components, including the rotor and the stator. The third-party inspection found one of the 4 rotor poles was damaged. The inspection company and the council's engineering consultant both recommend replacement of the existing generator with a new one due to the high cost of repair, risk of future failure, and compatibility with the Metropolitan WRRF's electrical load requirements. The current condition of the controls was evaluated since the generator is being recommended to be replaced. The current G7 controls are roughly 20 years old and near the end of service life. The current programmable logic controller, PLC, is unsupported and no spare parts are available. The recommendation is to replace the current G7 steam turbine generator system controls. Due to the highly specialized nature of this type of equipment, a service contract is recommended to maximize reliability of the steam turbine generators at the Metropolitan WRRF. The service contract approach is similar to how electric utilities maintain their steam turbine generator systems. The service contract includes the following: planning and scheduling services, including planning and coordination of inspections and outages, tracking, ordering, and providing spare parts, 4 annual steam turbine inspections, 2 generator inspections, and 1 major overhaul for the G7 steam turbine generator, and 4 annual steam turbine inspections and 1 major overhaul for the G9 steam turbine generator. This sole source follows the council's approach to construction specifications, which requires unit responsibility for equipment, where a single manufacturer is responsible for all components, and in this case, a turbine, the generator, and the controls as a complete and coordinated system. A sole source contract with Siemens Energy is recommended for the following reasons. Siemens Energy is the current OEM of the steam turbine generator. Siemens Energy is best suited to provide the unit responsibility for the G7 steam turbine generator and controls. Using non-OEM components would require re-engineering and greater risk of not meeting the form, fit, and function of the original components. And additionally, Siemens Energy is best suited to provide a service contract that maximizes the runtime of the G7 and G9 steam turbine generator systems. The cost of the goods and services to be completed under the sole source is $3.5 million, which includes $1.8 million for the G7 generator replacement, $300,000 for the G7 controls replacement, and $1.4 million for the 5-year service contract for G7 and G9. The price of parts and services are comparable to typical industry costs and have been determined to be fair and reasonable. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute a sole source contract 24P199 with Siemens Energy to provide goods and services for the Metropolitan WRRF steam turbine generator in an amount not to exceed $3,500,000. With that concludes our presentation and open it up to questions.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Carter?
I was just wondering, what's the estimated life cycle for the replacement part for the generator and the controls?
Yeah, Madam Chair, the estimated life cycle for the replacement generator is approximately 40 years, and the controls would be an additional 20.
Okay, so that means that it's gone up since the original parts, life cycle's gotten longer, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We approve the contract for 2024-169, the turbine generator sole source contract 24P199. Do I have to say something else?
Need any discussion, and then all those in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I think we have to go back. Any opposed? How's it? We have to go back and approve the minutes? Yeah. So we had a first and second motion to approve the committee minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? No. Okay, perfect. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to get that piece of equipment. Next on the agenda is business item 2024-170SW, adoption of the Metropolitan Council Environmental Services wastewater rates and charges. Thank you for coming, and Matt, you'll give us your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Matt Salmeyer. I'm the Budget Manager in Environmental Services. And I'm here today to talk about business item 2024-170SW. It's a same week item that would potentially go to the council tomorrow if approved today. And this is for the adoption of MCES wastewater rates and charges. Wow, where's our proposed action? So I'll read the proposed action, and then hopefully it will be at a slide later in the presentation. But our proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council adopt the wastewater rates and charges outlined in the business item to be effective January 1st, 2025. So for today, I'll give a quick refresher of our budget rates, and this is sort of an overview of what we went over on May 15th when I came in and presented, maybe a little bit higher level. And then we'll go over the rate setting schedule. We'll talk about our customer meetings. So we did have budget customer workshops in May and June. I'll give you a recap on how those went, some of the questions we got. We'll talk, again, high level about just a recap of things like our sources and uses, our debt, and our SAC rates. But those things have not changed since our May 15th presentation. So it will be some repeat information. But again, I'll try to go high level and go pretty quickly. So in May 2nd and 9th, we had our industrial workshops, both in person and virtual. We had 70 people attend. Stronger attendance at virtual. Seems like there's still a preference for virtual attendance. Then we had our committee workshop preview here on May 14th. Again, none of the numbers have changed since then. We then had our customer forums on May 21st and June 6th. One was in person in Roseville, the other one was online. And Chair Lindstrom did offer opening remarks on the virtual presentation. And in addition, at the virtual presentation, we had a stronger attendance as well. So seeing that trend. And then, so today we're here to talk about, just give a quick refresher of what those numbers are and seek your adoption of those rates and charges. And then it'll go to council on July 24th. And then on August 28th, we'd have the preliminary operating budget adoption. So the two meetings we had, the first meeting on May 21st was in Roseville, and I think we had about 15 people attend, and Lisa Thompson helped us with the kickoff in that meeting, and then we had our virtual meeting on June 6th, and again, we had at those, the in-person, for the budget customer workshops, we had fairly strong attendance. We had 12 people attend in person, and we had 41 attend virtually. So pretty consistent with what we've seen in years past, maybe a little bit higher. So our rates that are the same as previously is a 5.6% increase for our wastewater charges. That's primarily driven by inflation in labor, materials and supplies, and contract services. Our total sources are going up only by 3.8%. That's a little bit less than the wastewater charges. And that's because we are we're planning to put less of our SAC reserve into the SAC transfer to fund PAYGO. So we're trying to come off of the use of our SAC reserves to help. We don't want to continue to have too strong of a dependency on our reserves essentially. So that's why there's a little difference in numbers there. Total use is at 4.4%. The industrial strength charge is 7.1. That's a little bit higher than our wastewater charges, and that is because the industrial charges are weighted more heavily based on the treatment plants. So when you're treating your high-strength industrial charges, we factor in what does it cost at the treatment plant to treat that higher strength. We don't factor in quite as much on the interceptor side because whether something's high strength or regular strength, it's still got to travel through the pipe, but we really see the increased cost at the treatment plant. So that's why that's a little bit higher than the wastewater charges. And then our industrial permit fees are pegged pretty closely to our wastewater charge. We just round those to the nearest $25 or $50 or so on that. So our preliminary revenue sources, our largest piece is our municipal wastewater charges at 79%. After that, it's our sewer availability charges at 14%, and our industrial charges following that at 5%. One thing we always try to remind everyone of is that we have financial firewalls that would prevent any wastewater fees from being used toward any other part of the council. So there's firewalls in between transit and environmental services. There's no commingling of funds between those items. And then it says no federal, state, or council funds. So we don't receive any federal or state money. We're a fee-for-service agency. We do get a little bit of state money, but it's strictly in a pass-through basis. So if we might get money for an inflow and infiltration grant that we take in and pass along to maybe most likely a customer community in that case. Our uses by category, we have a balanced budget here of 376.9 set equal to the sources. Our biggest piece is 41% for debt because we do have a fairly robust capital program. So we're taking out debt and every year we're making payments on that. Next is salaries and benefits, paying for staff, followed by chemicals, interdivisional services, the central office that provides services such as information services is probably the biggest piece of that, but also things like having a central payroll team and things of that nature, followed by consulting, PAYGO, which is pay as you go. That's using some of our operating funds to help with paying for some of our capital expenditures, and then other, which includes things like centralized projects and miscellaneous expenses. So we have about $1.2 billion worth of outstanding debt. We have a replacement value of about $8 to $9 billion, so it's a pretty healthy amount of debt based on the replacement value. We have, in our latest bond issuance, we had a AAA bond rating, which is the highest you can have, so that's very strong for us. We did recently take out $60 million with of a 20-year fixed bond at 3.5%, so a strong interest rate. We do expect that this is going to increase in the out years for a couple of different things. We have some capital projects that are going to be taking place, like a fourth incinerator, work at the Blue Lake, work at interceptors, and then we're also expecting to see some inflation in those capital projects. As far as our debt service change, we project to be pretty flat in the next couple of years, but that's not going to last forever. You can see we had a debt service bubble, and previously what that was from is that during our last recession, we did refinance some of our debt, push it out to get through that recession, and then in 18 through 21, we were paying bigger increases in our debt service. I do expect that in the coming months, we're going to continue to work with our engineering folks and plant folks and try and get a firmer grasp on what those out years are going to look like from a capital spending perspective, and then be able to have, figure out how best to structure our debt going forward, but we always try to do some level of smoothing so we don't see drastic increases. This slide, I don't know if I can call it this, I call it kind of the bragging slide. It's a positive thing for us, certainly. Our wastewater rates are 35% better than the national average, and we're going to have our next results in August. So we have a new financial analyst on our team, and I'm looking forward to coming in and introducing him and going through some of those results with you, maybe within the next 3 to 6 months. So new data to come on that. Another positive for us is our historical SAC rate increases. So we've stayed at $2,485 per SAC unit, which assumes 274 gallons per household. We've stayed at that rate for 10 to 11 years. And that is in part due to healthy development in across several categories such as commercial and apartments and residential. And we've also have healthy reserves that has allowed us to keep our historical SAC rates flat for the last several years. Our rate increases, I should say. So here's our SAC units. So this last year in 2023, we had 19,163. We planned for 19,000 SAC units. That's the 20-year average. The drop we saw from 2022 was across the board between apartments, residential, and commercial. And through the first quarter of this year, we're in line with previous years. So I think we're in good shape, and I don't have any worries right now based on what we're seeing. We just had some really high years over the last 4, 5, 6 years. Next, the reserve balance. So you can see we're over $100 million, which is good, and it's quite a bit above our minimum policy reserve balance. But you can see back in 2010 and 2011, when we had a recession, we did dip a little bit below that. So we like to stay healthy. And then you can see that little downtick, 136.4 to 129.7. Part of that is because we were using some of our SAC reserve to help fund PAYGO, and that helps with rate mitigation. But we're trying to back off that because we don't want to be too reliant on our reserves each year in and year out. So here's kind of the new information that I think is hopefully exciting for everyone. So we had really good feedback. There was a lot of interest in inflow and infiltration. So we recently started the private inflow and infiltration grant program, and a lot of communities were really excited about that and wanted more funding. So, they want it to continue to grow, but there's certainly a lot of buzz and excitement about that. So that was some of the questions. Some questions were around future wastewater charge increases, and we communicated the 4 to 6% range that we're shooting for. We communicated that in our May 15th meeting with you and with our customer communities, and barring no unexpected changes, like, for example, if we suddenly needed to treat for new contaminants in wastewater that were going to be really expensive, barring nothing unforeseen like that, we plan to be in that inflationary range of 4 to 6%. There were questions about, so this is why I love we had some subject matter experts at the meeting. We had some questions on the asset management plan, fats, oils, and grease. And so we were able to, one of the advantages to the in-person meeting is that people stuck around for about 45 minutes after the meeting. They could talk to those subject matter experts about our asset management program, about the fats, oils, and greases. We have some information on our websites, but those are really valuable conversations. So I think there was a lot of value to continue to have that in-person presentation. And then if you're interested, there's a link there to all these questions and the answers as well. And so here's our proposed action. So with that, our proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council adopt the wastewater rates and charges outlined in the business item to be effective January 1st, 2025. And I'll stand for any questions.
Well, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? I really appreciate the slide that has the SAC reserve balance on it. I think it's really interesting to see, pre-2008, 2007, it looks like we're doing great, and just how quickly that reserve was needed. And so, we can see that we're up to, 100 million and whatever, but who knows what the future is. So keeping a healthy reserve seems to be very important. It was really interesting to see how quickly that reserve was needed. And so keeping that as part of the presentation, I really appreciate that.
Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve business item 2024-170?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other further discussions from anybody? So motion is approved to adopt Metropolitan Council Environmental Services wastewater rates and charges. Oh. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor and not in favor say nay. Now, we can approve. Business item 2024-170 SW. Thank you very much. We'll get hints from him. Just tell me what to do. Well, thank you, thank you. Our next business item is 2024-171, Project 819025, Trunk Highway 13, Change Order Authority Increase. And we're going to have a presentation about that, so thank you for coming today.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Tim Wedin. I'm an assistant manager with Interceptor Engineering, here to present to you on business item 2024-171. A bit of background on the location of our project. This is located in on Trunk Highway 13 in the city of Savage, just a little bit west of downtown Savage, near the ports of Savage themselves. You'll see on the lower left-hand corner of the project area, we've got our lift station L66 in that location. L66 pumps through Interceptor 8560 on its way to treatment. A little bit of information about the project itself. This project is a part of MnDOT's Trunk Highway 13 Improvements Project. It includes the realignment of the force main to avoid conflicts with Trunk Highway 13's new entrance ramps. The new entrance ramps are being constructed to improve access to the ports of Savage in the area. We had a number of supply chain challenges that had an impact on the delivery of pipe to the project site that extended the overall project completion time beyond what was included in the original contract documents. That construction schedule required the pipe to be installed during winter conditions, which required more effort by the contractor to complete the work that was not planned for in the contracted work. Weather conditions in 2023 season, 2022 to 2023 season, unlike this past winter, we had a lot of snow, and so that really created a situation that resulted in increased quantities, increased time over what the original contract documents included. And so those things complicated the effort and the work that was done on the project. So Metropolitan Council Environmental Services worked with MnDOT to come to a mutual agreement on the final cost of those cost increases to address those additional efforts. So our proposed action for you this evening is that the Metropolitan Council authorized an increase in construction and contract change order amount for the Master Utility Agreement 21I-069 with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for Interceptor 8560 MCES project number 819025 by $450,000 for a total amount not to exceed $4,103,870.95. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor say nay. Motion passes. That's it, right? Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My little cheat sheet. Our next business item is business item 2024-191, Master Contracts for Project Communications to support ES Capital Program, Contract 23P-156. And welcome.
Madam Chair and committee members, thank you for having me here today. I'm Deb McKinley, Acting Director of Administration and Communications Department and Environmental Services, and I'm here to present business item 2024-191, the Master's Contract for Communications to support Environmental Services Capital Program. Communication and outreach services are needed to implement the authorized multi-year capital program for the ES interceptor system and treatment plants. The total contract amount was based on a level of effort estimate by the ES capital program staff. This work advances several environmental service priorities, partnering with customers and stakeholders to achieve regional goals. As you know, ES provides wastewater services to 111 communities. Each local government has its own preferences for how we provide services and how we communicate with their residents. Every community has residents and other stakeholders with their own collection of viewpoints and preferences. We also want to maintain the trust of regulators and stakeholders, and we aim to uphold the principles of our customer level of service through this work. And the third priority that this work meets is ensuring solutions address systemic inequity. We look for vendors with experience engaging underserved communities who could develop culturally appropriate resources and provide interpretation and translation. A new responsibility for communications consultants is to develop a demographic overview of the communities impacted by our project or program, including whether a population is affected by systemic inequities, so the council can consider whether additional site enhancements are needed. Environmental Services desires to have a high level of transparency about our projects without creating a burden on the community where we are completing our work. And we have many high-profile projects, including 2 wastewater plants, the 4th incinerator at the Metro plant, a lift station in the city of Fridley on the former site of a Girl Scout camp, which is some of the last remaining large tract of natural area, in addition to a variety of interceptor improvement projects to rehabilitate existing sewer lines or increase our capacity to serve growth. It is essential that we communicate and collaborate with communities where our projects are located. Types of work that are essential for communications outreach will vary on the complexity of the project and the needs of the community, but examples are our project websites that contain project summaries and latest updates, handouts with maps, signage at the project sites, educational videos, social media postings to reach more residents, virtual meetings, and in-person open houses or on-site pop-up meetings. The total master contract amount is for $2 million. These are multiple year contracts to allow for continuing work of a contractor across several project phases, including planning, construction, and restoration. We did a formal solicitation issue on February 2nd, and the disadvantaged business enterprise underutilized business goal was 21%. The Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity assigned this goal for the solicitation, and procurement staff reviewed the directory and contract potential for DBEs and MCUB vendors to make them aware of the solicitation. 9 proposals were received on March 11th, and the proposals were selected to be the most advantageous to the council. A panel of communication staff and engineers reviewed the proposals. 3 were evaluators, plus 2 additional subject matter experts were included. The communication staff brought knowledge of communications best practices and council brand standards and messaging, as well as processes and templates laid out in the capital program communications guide. The 3 engineering staff brought long-term experience in managing capital projects and environmental services and experience working with communications consultants on these projects. The evaluation criteria included quality of proposal, qualifications of proposal, and experience of the proposal. Price was also considered, obviously. There were 7 proposers. 6 proposers met the DBE requirements as determined by OEEO, and 3 of the recommended proposers are MCUB firms. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute 6 master contracts, P23P156 for communications and engagement related to the ES Capital Program, totaling $2 million. Based on the strength and ability to provide communications needs to Environmental Services Capital Program, 6 master contracts are recommended in the following amounts: $650,000 to HDR Engineering, $600,000 to Z Companies, $250,000 to Kimley Horn, $250,000 to WSB, $150,000 to SDK Communications and Consulting, and $100,000 to Goff Public. So this concludes my presentation. I'd like to invite any questions.
Do we have any questions? Councilmember?
I just want to, you said that this contract is multiple years. How many years exactly?
So the contract period's for up to 5 years.
Thank you.
I have a question on, if you go to slide 4, I think, just back up one slide. So are each of these companies assigned an expertise, or do they overlap, given, the different communities and engagement? And I'm just say that I think this is a really good idea to get this engagement. I've seen how well the Environmental Services has been doing with their engagement on the water policy plan. So it's really important. I'm just curious, with so many companies, are the tasks split out? Are their expertises split out somehow?
So there is a large amount of overlap in skills and qualifications. They all had to have all the skills necessary to execute the contract. There were some differentiating factors that were considered. We have a lot of projects that require very similar skill sets, and the projects may not be as high profile. And so we took their performance scores on the proposals, and that was one of the criteria factors. But then a couple of the companies that maybe had less of that high performance for our standard projects, but we really were focusing on a couple of vendors who had more unique engagement experience and more intensive media responsiveness and political savvy were a couple of the other considerations for a few of the vendors.
So the expertises and strengths kind of changed amongst a few
For a few.
vendors. Perfect, perfect. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any other further discussion? No? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, say nay. Thank you. The motion passes. And 224-191 is approved. Thank you. That'll be nice to have. Last but not least, next business item is business item 2024-192 JT. Release the Kraken? No, release the 2050 water policy plan for public comment. Jen, thanks for having you here.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, council or committee members. There have been so many times that I've been wanting to put that in the slide,
Okay.
so thank you for saying it. I do want to say up front, the 2 letters JT at the end of this business item means that it is a joint business item. You will see this number move through different committees because we are moving the entire regional development guide together as a packet. And so this is one part of it that you will see other parts coming through the various committees for the other policy plans. Today we are talking about the water policy plan. I have shown you this slide, it seems like for 12 years, since we began this effort with the policy research papers about 2 years ago. The purpose of the plan is to ensure that we have sustainable water resources in the region. We do this within this plan by setting up an integrative water planning framework. So not just looking at wastewater, looking at surface water or water supplies, but actually looking about them holistically. So across the water cycle, across the natural system and built environments. This plan contains policies, strategies, and actions, and it will commit the council to action in the various areas of long-range visioning and planning, system investments, facility management, technical assistance, research and assessment, and partnerships. I have been the person sitting in front of you for this whole time, but I want to make sure that credit goes to the folks that helped to create this document. There were 3 teams that were pulled together that worked both independently and integratively, so similar to how the water system works. And so for the team that worked on the front matter and helping to create the water policies, I want to acknowledge Steve Christopher, John Clark, Kyle Colvin, Maureen Hoffman, Andrea Kaufman. I was on that team, Henry McCarthy, Emily Schon, and Judy Sventek. The system plan is that snapshot of our regional wastewater system. And so I want to give credit to that team. So that's Walter Atkins, Kyle Colvin, Emma Devia, Adam Gordon, Rene Heflin, Emily Schon, and Megan Wilson helped with some of the map making. And then lastly was the water supply plan. And so again, there was a team of really great ES staff that helped pull that together. So credit to Maureen Hoffman, Greg Johnson, Jen Cater, myself, Lenya Ross, and Judy Sventek. So again, I might have been the face, but I am not the brains. There are so many brains that came together to make this plan possible. Today, we are here to talk about releasing this document for public comment. It's essential to the council that we receive this public comment because it helps us do our job better to hear what the public has to say about our proposed plans. And so as you can see here on this little timeline, we are transitioning from the darker green to the lime green section. We are going to release this document so that we can get additional comments that we later can make revisions from, and then hopefully bring the final document to you early next year for adoption, and we can start operating under the Imagine 2050 policies. I did come last month with the draft that you all were able to review. And attached to this packet, I want to acknowledge that there's two different versions of this plan. One is the complete transparent markup. So you can see in green font all of the changes from that document that happened in June to this document that we are bringing in front of you for release. There is also a clean version because it gets pretty hard to read all of that green font. So there is a clean version of this document. You will see in the front matter, there were 3 general categories. Editorial changes were made throughout, again, just trying to clean up language, try to increase plain language to ensure the readability of this plan. We also enlarged figures for ease of reading and tried to make sure that things that we thought were in images, that those images made sense. I'm actually hopeful to hear more comments about those images through the public comment period to see if we were successful. And we also added some new content. So we did revise the language for the climate, investments, health, and equity objectives. I'm going to show you some of those, how those changes happen in the next slides. We revised the policy language again for clarity, and some of those comments we received from you all, so thank you very much. When I found myself stumbling over the policies while reading them aloud to you, we figured out pretty quickly that some of those words had to change. We clarified some desired outcomes for all policies, so we made sure that we really were getting the best description of what those outcomes were intended to mean. And then we added some actions to clarify planning expectations for local comprehensive plans. Our intent is that the water policy plan helps to create alignment with the local water plans as well. And so we wanted to add a little bit of suggested actions how that could be accomplished. This is going to be a test of my vision. I will make the font bigger next time. So just to give some examples of how the language changed. For the climate, old language that you saw the first time through, it read that we would create climate-resistant water resources, ecosystems, and water infrastructure through mitigation, innovative design, and adaptive planning. Similar, but a little bit hopefully more clear for the new language, we now say that the region's water and water services are protected from and made resilient to ongoing and future effects of climate change. So again, a lot of the intent is still there. We just clarified it and made it a little bit simpler to read. Same with investments. The old language for the investment objective was to optimize regional water protection, planning, and infrastructure investment. That is short and sweet, but there was a lot of ambiguity. We got some questions as to what did that really mean? What did optimized mean? And so we added some clarity to that objective, made it longer, but added hopefully some clarity. And so it now reads that our investment objective is so that water protection, planning, management, and infrastructure investments are optimized to ensure public and ecosystem health are fully protected now and for future generations. So again, clarifying our intent a little bit more within our objectives. For the health objective, it used to read, protect public and ecosystem health to maintain, restore, and enhance a high quality of life, regional waters, and water services across the region. Again, we added a little bit more because that could mean different things to many different people, and so we wanted to add some detail. And so the new language now reads, natural waters, source waters, water services, and infrastructure are managed, restored, and enhanced to protect public and ecosystem health that ensures a high quality of life in the region. Again, we didn't change the intent, we just added a little bit more detail. And then lastly, the equity objective used to read, water benefits and services are accessible and shared amongst all residents and communities. And this has now been changed to read, the benefits of clean and abundant water and water services are defined by local needs and environmental context, accessible and justly shared by all residents and communities. So again, a little bit more detail in what our intent was for those objectives. The similar tweaking does happen throughout the document. So if you do have some questions, I would point you towards the more examples if you are curious to dig in a little bit deeper as to how things changed in the front matter. Within the system plan, again, we had the editorial changes throughout. Our friends within Central Communications were very kind to do a read-through to help us make sure that we were writing with the same tone and same ideal of plain language. And the changes that we made from the last time you saw this, we were able to add our community forecasts and flow projections. And we were able to include estimates on capital improvements in response to potential future regulations. So the content is some of the new additions for this public comment draft. We also realized, and this was the part of having 3 separate teams, that we ended up having some redundant content. And so as we put all of the 3 pieces together, we hashed out who got to keep what. And we moved the climate impacts to the front matter because that actually helps set the stage for the rest of the plan. Within the water supply plan, we had some, again, editorial changes, and we added some new content. So we added clarification as to where the funding for water supply planning comes from, because it's a little bit different than the other sources of funding for water resources and the wastewater planning services. We added an introduction to the sub-regional action plans. Those were plans that were created by locals, and our hope, we commit to working with locals to implement those plans. But we wanted to make sure that we were clear on how those plans were created and who were the authors and intended implementers for those plans. And then we added the first version of our demand projections. Again, since we were able to get the population forecast, that allowed us to start thinking about what demand projections could look like into the future. We also ran this plan through our advisory committees of MOSAC and MOSAC TAC. And our committee members were able to help us by making subtle changes. Some of them, actually, the last MOSAC meeting was in real time. We had the document on the screen, and we were wordsmithing with them in the room, so they were watching us make the changes in real time, which allowed them to approve the release of this plan. So this is the one interesting detail, is that MOSAC actually has the approval authority of the water supply plan. And because we have put it into this document, we wanted to make sure we were going through the right check gates of approval processes. So MOSAC has already approved this plan for public comment, and now it's part of the larger packet, which will be coming in front of you all. And so with that, the proposed action, this has been a long time coming, but that the Environment Committee recommends to the Metropolitan Council to release the 2050 Water Policy Plan for formal public comment. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have any questions and comments? I just will offer a comment up. I just really appreciate the consistent messaging across your teams throughout the water policy plan, the water supply, the TAC, the MOSAC, and the amount of engagement. What I saw was that you really gave space for community ownership for their pieces, and it really developed the different local communities from the regional meetings to really become colleagues. And they are colleagues already, but you could see that they really came together and we're serious about working on this, and we're really interested in learning about what other communities were doing as well. So I just really wanted to thank you for that. Councilmember Wolf?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to elaborate on that. With MOSAC, when the water supply staff first came to me and said, we want to do this differently, I was really excited because I thought the old way, of having us tell people something and then having 100 and some pages about individual cities and what they were doing was not particularly useful, nor was it good for the relationship between us and our communities that we work with. But there was a risk to it, that we would do this and nobody would show up or they wouldn't, really dig in and do the work, and everybody was fantastic. And it really improved the relationship that we have with our communities, that we trusted them to be a part of the process and do a bottom-up sort of thing. I really hope that we can expand that next time to community development and give the same grace to the community development side of cities and counties. But I'm just so excited about this and really happy at how the whole process went. And I really appreciate our staff for proposing that in the first place, because they were the ones that came up with the idea. I just let them run with it, but it was a fantastic process.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Committee Member Wolf, thank you for those comments. I will say 2 points on this. My favorite comment that we received from this was at one of the sub-regional engagements. One of the participants came up. This is that when we brought everyone together for the all sub-region meeting. And the participant said, I can actually see my Post-it note in this document. And so we were able to take that idea and honor it and incorporate it so much that the participant actually felt as though his words were actually in the plan, which hopefully is true, but also there were a lot of really good ideas on Post-it notes, so I lost track of which Post-it note belonged to which person. The second point I want to say is that this was an experimental design for the water supply plan. We do have plans and commitments to continue this sub-regional engagement going forward once the 2050 plan is adopted. We are intending to have those conversations be a little bit more One Water focused. We will continue to work with our suppliers to help with their local plans that they have created as part of this water supply process, or the sub-regional plans. But there are a lot of conversations that arose in those that we knew we needed to bring more people together to discuss. And there are future challenges that we know we need to have more people in that conversation. So we are going to use the same model, but expand it a little bit more to continue to have these One Water conversations throughout the region.
Thank you. Any other comments or?
Just want to say thank you for the partnership that promoted this outcome. So it's good.
Thank you, Councilmember Carter.
Well, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any other further discussion? All those in favor of approving 2024-192 JT, say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It doesn't look like we have any information at this time. Do we have a report from the general manager?
We do. An update on something you heard about in April that we got a little excitement built around, and that was the partnership with the City of St. Paul and District Energy, so we could capture waste heat from the Metro plant and use that energy to heat most of downtown St. Paul as well as the Capitol complex. So it would basically be a carbon neutral energy. Well, we had high hopes that we would win a grant from the EPA, and we got word yesterday that we did not get the grant. We had asked for $150 million. We're not giving up, just so you know. We're going to continue to work with those partners to figure out how we can find a path forward to secure funding for that work, because we think it's ultimately very important and could just be the beginning of more of that that could benefit this region. I will say that Minnesota did get some grant money. There were 25 applications overall. One from Minnesota was granted, and that was PCA. PCA got $199 million for work that would cut across 5 state agencies, and it involves peatland restoration, climate-friendly agricultural practices, industrial innovation, vehicle and equipment replacement, and food waste prevention. So we'll see some carbon reductions as a result of a grant coming to Minnesota. It'll just be taking a different path. We're happy to have them be the benefactors of some money, and we're all living in Minnesota, and we can benefit from that. We are disappointed, but again, we're not going to give up because we think this is a really important team effort that we can figure out another way to get there.
Well, thank you. I know that a lot of effort went into putting that together, and we can try and find a way to collectively put our heads together to continue to try and make that happen. And it just seems like a kind of a no-brainer, obvious project, so have to put out our cups and see if we can collect some more money. Is there any other further discussion from anybody? Okay, I think the meeting is adjourned.
Go over what's going to be on the consent agenda for tomorrow. And what's going to be non-consent.
The same week is always non-consent.
Non-consent, yeah.
The other stuff we can figure out later.
Right. So, yeah, so it'll all be non-consent, same week. Okay. Yep. All right, adjourned. Thank you.